Hello, everyone. Good to see you again. If you happen to be on your feet, grab a chair immediately. If you are already seated, grip the armrest tight, because the spectacle we just saw at the Mubadala Abu Dhabi Open transcends a simple scoreboard update. We are looking at a full-blown earthquake in the sporting world. This is a foundational rupture in the WTA hierarchy, triggering tremors felt all the way from the tropical heat of Manila to the icy streets of Moscow and right back to the desert courts of the Emirates. We are dissecting an outcome that ignores probability, mocks the betting houses, and completely overturns the established pecking order of professional tennis. When the brackets were released, the path seemed paved and polished for the game's absolute giants to march through. Enter Elena Rybakina, ranked third globally, a juggernaut known as the Ice Queen, wielding a service game so lethal it is practically illegal. Although she flies the flag for Kazakhstan, her roots and training are deeply embedded in Moscow's tennis culture. With the gaze of the entire post-Soviet region locked on her silhouette, she stepped onto the Abu Dhabi center court as the undisputed, colossal favorite to win. We are talking about a major title holder, a hard court specialist, and a competitor who thrives when the heat is turned up to the max. Staring her down from across the net was the long shot, the wildcard entry, the Filipina sensation, Alexandra Eala. Undeniably a prospect on the ascent, and without question, a name demanding attention. However, facing the raw kinetic energy and ball speed of the world number 3, analysts figured she had a snowball's chance in hell. The script called for a clinical 2-set demolition by Rybakina, nothing more than a glorified practice session on her way to the trophy. Yet, athletics are never decided on spreadsheets. They happen on the grit of clay, the slickness of grass, and today, on the brutal synthetic surface of Abu Dhabi. Victory is forged in the spirit, and the bulletin arriving from the Emirates this very second confirms it. The status quo of the racket sport universe has just been violently inverted. In a contest being hailed as the most volatile, adrenaline-fueled, and strategically complex bout of the year, Eala has achieved the impossible. She stood her ground against Rybakina in a duel that didn't merely test their stamina limits, but obliterated them entirely. We are titling this chapter Russia Stunned, and believe me, that is no exaggeration. Digital platforms throughout the Russian tennis community are in total disarray. Message boards are flaming out, and analysts have lost their voices. What caused this chaos? Because Rybakina, typically the one commanding the court with surgical precision, crashed into a defensive barricade so ferocious and intelligent that it deconstructed the mythology surrounding the elite game. Calling this an upset is an insult. This was a televised insurrection. We observed a stylistic collision destined for future coaching manuals, Rybakina's artillery flat, rapid-fire, overwhelming force. Opposing that was the southpaw wizardry, the tenacity, and the miraculous defensive retrievals of Eala. We watched exchanges stretching past 20, even 30 strokes at a time. We saw velocity on serves that physics suggests should be unplayable, yet they came back even faster, culminating in a tiebreaker that felt eternal, each point a standalone thriller. It was a gamble of fate executed with nothing more than carbon fiber and yellow felt. The reason for this stunned silence? The quality of the fight. Rybakina did not underperform. I need to emphasize this. The favorite did not collapse or gift the win through sloppy mistakes. On the contrary, Rybakina arrived with her full arsenal, the aces, the crushing forehands, and Eala simply soaked it all up. She took the heaviest blows a major champion could deliver and reflected them with an accuracy far above her current standing. The aftershocks of this duel are immense. For Rybakina, it exposes a potential weakness against this fresh wave of tactical lefties. Regarding the Russian fan base, who arguably still view Rybakina as one of their own, regardless of the flag she plays under, this is a wake-up call that their dominance is far more fragile than they believed. As for Alexandra Eala, this is her coronation. She has officially arrived. It is a broadcast to every other player that the training wheels are gone and she is hunting apex predators now. We are going to dissect this sequence by sequence. We will explore the mental warfare, the court geometry, and those critical seconds where the advantage oscillated like a pendulum in a storm. We will talk about the volatility of the matchup, the intense eye contact, strategic shifts, and an audience that transformed from golf claps to deafening roars once they understood history was unfolding. Strap in for a deep dive into the mechanics of a miracle, because this isn't a standard recap. This is a forensic investigation into how a Titan was brought to her knees. This is Alexandra Eala taking on Elena Rybakina. Live from the Abu Dhabi Open, this is the narrative that has the entire globe gasping for air. I'm listing the headline and the critical segments now, so get ready for a professional deep dive breakdown in the main script ahead. Time to crack this case wide open and examine the anatomy of a stunner. To grasp the magnitude of the blast, we must first inspect the volatile ingredients swirling inside the stadium cauldron. Picture the prologue, the classic tale of the underdog facing off against the Ice Queen. Context is everything. Elena Rybakina touched down in Abu Dhabi not merely to compete, but to reign supreme. Her campaign on the hard courts leading to this moment had been nothing short of tyrannical. Watching Rybakina operate is like witnessing the apex of knockout tennis. Her serve ranks among the most lethal in tour history. It is not simply the velocity, often clocking 120 miles per hour, but the surgeon-like precision. Her blueprint is terrifyingly basic. A thunderous serve, a weak reply, a forehand obliteration, game over. It is ruthless, economical, and absolutely terrifying. Back in the Russian and Kazakhstani press, the pre-match chatter was nearly non-existent, driven by cold probability rather than malice. Articles focused on who she would meet in the trophy round, treating the Eala bout as a mere warm-up exercise. The collective gasp sweeping through Russia stems from this supreme overconfidence. They assumed she was untouchable. Then steps in Alexandra Eala, the Filipino phenomenon who has been quietly sharpening her skills in the shadows. Forged in the Rafa Nadal Academy with junior titles to her name, the professional circuit remains a completely different beast. As a southpaw, Eala wields a geometric edge, especially when carving serves out wide on the ad side to stretch opponents. However, her arsenal is not stocked with the sledgehammer power that Rybakina possesses. She relies on kinetic chess, reading the play, and a topspin-heavy forehand designed to wreck a flat hitter's timing. Rybakina looms over her, boasting a reach and leverage advantage that looked insurmountable on paper. Experts glanced at the matchup and scoffed, predicting Eala would be blasted off the surface without the firepower to retort. They could not have been more wrong. At 2-1, the trap was sprung, despite the script holding for the opening act. Rybakina opened with a love hold, boom, 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 ace reverberating like cannon fire against the back wall. It seemed like the beginning of the end, until Eala stepped up to the line and cracked the illusion. Rather than fight fire with fire, Eala poured water on the fuse, employing slicing cuts and wicked lefty curves. She dragged Rybakina out of her comfort zone, forcing the giant to stoop and lunge for awkward balls. Cruising along, Rybakina suddenly stared down a love 30 deficit, rattled by two rare slips. Correction, forced errors. Eala had stepped inside the baseline on a second serve, usually a heavy kicker. Robbing the Titan of time, she rifled a backhand straight down the corridor, leaving Rybakina stranded. A hush fell over the crowd, while the Russian broadcasters likely froze, pens hovering in disbelief. Rybakina erased the break points with signature aces, but the seed of doubt had taken root. Eala was not merely staying alive, she was stalking her prey, leading to the tiebreak that sparked the headlines. This was not a rally. It was a grueling psychological siege. Rybakina would unleash a 100-mile-per-hour rocket, and Eala, scrambling madly, would somehow sky a defensive lob back into play. Neutralizing the threat, Eala snatched the opener 7-6, sending a jolt of confused electricity through the stands. The impossible was happening. A wild card had stolen a set from the world number 3 by outsmarting, not outgunning her. Point 3 involves the tactical masterclass of lefty spin, dismantling flat velocity. Now, let us dissect the mechanics of this upset. Why did Rybakina falter, and why is the tennis world so perplexed? Rybakina feeds on rhythm. She needs pace to borrow, redirecting the energy like a mirror. The harder you hit, the quicker she sends it back, provided the timing is clean. Eala starved her of that speed. Eala employed what we affectionately call junk, a mesmerizing mix of fluctuating heights and rotations. She looped heavy topspin shots that kicked above Rybakina's shoulders, forcing the tall star to strike downward, flirting with the net. Immediately after, Eala would flatten the trajectory, skidding the ball across the turf. This relentless sabotage of the strike zone triggered a cascade of unforced errors from Rybakina's racket. Rybakina glared at her box, gesturing at the court. Her gear, anything but the equipment, was not the culprit. It was the geometry Eala was painting. The cross-court exchange became the kill zone. Normally, Rybakina's backhand is impenetrable, yet Eala was not feeding her flat balls. She was serving up extreme dips and angles. Rybakina was getting dragged off the court, leaving the lines wide open for Eala to strike. 4-2, the Empire strikes back. You simply have to respect the grit of the world number 3. That second set paused the whole shock the world narrative as order seemed to return. Rybakina came out furious, dialing up the heat on her serve. She stopped playing nice in long rallies and started pulling the trigger early. Rybakina snatched the second set, 6-2. It felt like the fairy tale had hit a wall. You could see the physical toll weighing heavy on Eala. Chasing down Rybakina's heavy hitting is like running wind sprints for 45 minutes straight. The commentators relaxed, saying, "Here we go, order restored." The favorite had finally woken up, but that is exactly when the match truly caught fire. Into the decider, a brutal war of attrition. The third set is the final act where legends are carved in stone. Eala took a bathroom break and walked back out with a fresh kit, somehow fresh legs. The third set wasn't just tennis anymore. It was a heavyweight boxing match. Games 1-4 were holds, but they were absolute dogfights, going to deuce time and time again. Rybakina's first serve percentage began to crumble. Maybe it was fatigue, or maybe it was the pressure of a wild card who refused to die. The turning point hit at 4-all. Rybakina serving 30-all. Eala read a 115-mile-per-hour rocket, blocked it deep, and sparked a 24-shot rally. Back and forth they went. The crowd gasped with every single impact. Finally, Rybakina tried to end the misery, gunning for a line winner but missing by millimeters. Breakpoint, Eala. The stadium blew the roof off. Russian fans in the stands buried their faces in their hands. Eala sealed the break with an absolutely stunning drop shot. Pure audacity against a player of Rybakina's caliber. Suddenly, she was serving for the match at 5-4. The pressure on Eala must have been suffocating. This was the moment the entire world expected the collapse, the choke. It is classic for underdogs to get vertigo when they stand on the edge of a giant killing. Rybakina saved 2 match points. She punished Eala's second serves, pushing it to deuce, then advantage out breakpoint Rybakina. If she breaks back, she likely steals the match. That was the mood. But then Eala produced the shot of the tournament, a running forehand passing shot down the line. Struck from outside the doubles alley, curling back in to kiss the paint. Even Rybakina had to applaud that one. Nobody could have predicted the fallout. Why? Because this shakes the foundation of the sport. When Rybakina's final ball sailed long, the reaction was instant. Eala collapsed to the clay. Rybakina stood frozen at the net, a look of genuine disbelief painted on her face. Why is everyone so stunned? It is the ranking gap. We are talking about the world number 3 versus a fighter scraping to get into the top 50. The gulf in points, experience, and prize money is astronomical. And the surface Abu Dhabi is a fast hard court. It is tailor-made for Rybakina. It is not supposed to be a place where a crafty defender can dismantle a power hitter so easily. Eala defied the physics of the court and answered the consistency question. Rybakina is famous for being a rock in the early rounds. She almost never drops matches to players outside the top 20. This loss creates a vacuum in the draw and absolute chaos in the betting markets. Then there is the geopolitical angle. The Russian and Kazakhstani fan bases are incredibly passionate. They view Rybakina as the rightful heir to the women's tennis throne. For her to be taken apart by a young rising star from the Philippines, a nation with a growing but smaller tennis footprint, is a massive shock to the system. It challenges the narrative of Eurocentric dominance. The aftermath was explosive. The handshake was respectful but ice cold. Rybakina was clearly furious with herself, but the real explosion happened online. The word shock is trending everywhere. Analysts are already tearing apart Rybakina's movement, asking if she is hurt or if she underestimated Eala. But let's flip the script. This isn't about what Rybakina did wrong. It has to be about what Eala did right. This match was explosive because it signaled a changing of the guard. Maybe it is too early to call it, but it is a signal that the big 3 or 4 of women's tennis are not safe. The pack is hunting them down. The stats tell the whole story. Unforced errors. Rybakina, 45. Eala, 18. Eala refused to give away free points. Breakpoint conversion. Eala was 4 for 5. Clinical efficiency. She took her chances the second they appeared. Net points were key. Eala won 80% of the points when she came forward. She wasn't just defending, she was finishing. This victory for Alexandra Eala is not just a win. It is a statement. It is a loud, explosive declaration that she belongs on the center courts of the world's biggest stages. And for Elena Rybakina, it is a brutal wake-up call, a reminder that in the WTA, danger lurks in every single round. A ranking is just a number once the ball is in play. We are witnessing the rise of a new fan favorite. The crowd in Abu Dhabi, initially neutral or leaning toward the star power of Rybakina, was chanting Eala's name by the end. That is the intoxicating power of the underdog story. That right there, that is the raw, combustible soul of this game. So, what happens next? The sand is barely settling across the courts in the Emirates. Yet the shockwaves from this showdown are going to vibrate through the entire season. For Elena Rybakina, it is time to stare into the mirror. Those banners screaming that the motherland is stunned, that is not clickbait. It captures the real anxiety pulsing through her fan base. Was this just a glitch? A terrible day at the office? Or did Alexandra Eala just hand out the blueprint on how to shatter Rybakina's game? You can bet every future rival is already in the film room dissecting this footage. They will witness how Eala mixed depth and spin to kill the pace. They will see the Ice Queen actually melts if you bring enough fire and refuse to quit. Rybakina will recover. Winners always do. But that cloak of invincibility, it definitely took a beating today. She has to gather herself, maybe tweak the strategy against southpaws, and return with a vengeance. As for Eala, this is her liftoff moment. We have watched countless rookies land a giant killing blow, only to vanish. But winning with brain power, not just luck, proves she is here to stay. She did not just close her eyes and swing for the fences. She took apart a world-class titan, brick by single brick. The Philippines finds a new icon, and the tour gets a wild card nightmare. History will mark this Abu Dhabi clash as the moment the narrative flipped. Today, unyielding spirit triumphed over raw physics. It was electric. It was startling and absolutely beautiful. Before we wrap this up, I need your voice in the mix. How do you read this earthquake of a result? Did Rybakina just sleepwalk through it? Or is Eala proving she belongs in the top 10 elite? Is the panic back in Russia warranted? Or is this just standard chaos for the women's tour? Head down to the comments right now. I want to read your hot takes. Rybakina loyalists, explain the collapse. Eala army, predict her ceiling. How deep does this run go? Now that she has slain the dragon, does she have the stamina to lift the trophy? Hey, if you dug this deep dive and prefer the nitty-gritty details over boring box scores, help a creator out. Crush that like button harder than a Rybakina winner. Subscribe and ring that bell so you are always in the loop. We are tracking the action in Abu Dhabi all week. If this opener was any indication, buckle up. Thanks for tuning in. Today, we wrote history on the court. Stick around, keep the fire burning, and never take your eyes off the ply. Ball.